The guy handed me my coat. That's how this all started. He handed me my own coat like he was doing me a favor, like he lived there and I was just some confused visitor who'd shown up drunk on the wrong night. We were standing in the middle of a crowded rooftop bar. Music was low, laughter everywhere. My wife was maybe 20 feet away, laughing too loud at something, sipping champagne out of a glass I'd never seen in our house. I didn't even know this man. Not yet. But he knew me. "You look cold," he said, pressing the coat into my chest. "She said you get cold easily." She said that? I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. It took me a few seconds to process that this stranger had just made a joke about me, based on something my wife told him. And that's when it hit me. Everyone around us was in on something I wasn't. I looked over at her. She wasn't looking back. She was mid-story, animated, her hands waving like she was orchestrating the conversation. People were locked in. It was like watching a TED Talk on how to be magnetic. And that guy? This tall, clean-cut, cologne commercial-looking coworker. He just smirked and said, "Nice meeting you, man," before turning and walking straight toward her. She touched his shoulder when he arrived. Not a hello touch. A "we're already in the middle of something" touch. My ears were ringing. I felt like I was underwater. The worst part? No one even noticed me standing there. I stood next to a heat lamp that didn't work, holding a coat I apparently needed because my wife had told another man that I was the kind of guy who gets cold too easily. It sounds stupid now. Small. Petty. But in that moment, that little detail, that tiny exchange, shattered something in me. I wasn't her husband at that party. I was her character. Someone she described to other people. Someone she laughed about behind doors I didn't know existed. And when I finally did confront her, weeks later, do you know what she said? "Oh God, you're still upset about that?" No, Nessa, I'm not still upset about that. I'm upset about everything that came after. And I'm finally ready to tell it. I didn't leave right away that night. I stood at the far end of the rooftop with that stupid coat in my arms, pretending to scroll through my phone like I wasn't falling apart inside. I'd become invisible, even to her. I watched the way her hand hovered near his waist when she leaned in to whisper something. I watched his mouth curl when she laughed, like he was proud to have pulled it from her. It wasn't flirtation, it was something worse. Familiarity. I counted how many times she looked over at me. Not once. They disappeared from the group around 10 minutes later. I didn't see them leave. One second they were there, the next they weren't. I walked through the bar slowly, trying to act casual, trying to tell myself I wasn't about to look for my wife like a jealous idiot. I checked the hallway near the restrooms. Nothing. I even tried the small balcony near the emergency exit. Empty. They came back 15 minutes later. She had fixed her lipstick. He had that post-something grin that I will never, ever forget. She walked past me and handed me a drink. My favorite. Neat. Not on the rocks. But she never drinks this. Never even remembers the name. "Thought you might want something stiffer," she said casually. The cup was cold. Her hand wasn't. I asked where she went. She blinked once, too slowly, and said, "Oh, I had to make a call. Work stuff." He was right behind her, not even trying to act like he hadn't been gone at the exact same time. Something broke inside me then. Not rage. Just this heavy, dead silence in my gut. Like walking into your own house and realizing all your furniture's been replaced by copies that look the same but feel wrong. But I still didn't say anything. I rode home with her. Sat in the passenger seat like a well-behaved dog. She hummed along to the radio, scrolled her texts at stoplights, and asked if I had fun. I said yes. My voice cracked. She didn't notice. When we got home, she went straight to the shower. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her purse. I don't know what I expected to find, or if I even planned to look. But something made me lean over and unzip it. Inside, next to her wallet, was a gold monogrammed business card. Anton Trainer, Lead UX. His number was scribbled on the back with a little smiley face drawn beside it. I didn't know what to think. They worked together. Maybe he gave that card to everyone. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe. No, it wasn't. Because the next morning, I went into her office to ask her something. The room went quiet the second I opened the door. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. They had both stopped laughing the second they saw me. The moment I stepped into that office, something shifted. Not in the air, not in the sound, but in people. You know that eerie sixth sense you get when everyone in a room changes their posture at the same time, like you've accidentally walked into a conversation that wasn't meant for your ears? That's what happened. It was subtle, Someone lowered their voice, someone else pretended to be deep in their laptop, but I felt it. Nessa was sitting at her desk across the open-plan layout, backlit by the glow of her dual monitors. She froze when she saw me, like she wasn't expecting to see me again so soon after last night's party. Her eyes did that flicker thing, a split second of calculation, masking it with a smile just a breath too late. It was such a small moment. Most people wouldn't catch it, but I did. "Hey," I said, pretending to be casual. "You left your charger in my car." I held it out like some kind of offering, and I could feel Anton's eyes on me from 2 desks away. He didn't even pretend to be busy. He just sat there, one hand on the keyboard, the other resting on his chin, like he was watching a scene he'd already seen in rehearsal. Nessa stood and walked toward me. "Oh," she said, "you really didn't have to come all the way up." I shrugged. "Didn't want your laptop to die in the middle of one of those famous calls you disappear for." That was a jab, not even a sharp one, just enough to see if she flinched. She didn't. She smiled politely and took the charger. "Thanks." Behind her, Anton stretched back in his chair like he was watching a matinee. And then, just as I was about to leave, I heard someone, I don't know who, whisper behind me. "That's him?" Not loud, not obvious, but loud enough. And no one in that office corrected it. I got into the elevator, and my reflection in the brushed metal doors looked foreign. Pale, smaller, like I was the ghost of someone who used to matter. That night, I asked her, plainly, without pretense, if she and Anton were close. Not accusing, just asking. She exhaled like I'd asked her for a kidney. God called her. "Can you not spiral for once? He's literally a colleague. Jesus." And just like that, she turned it around. She made me the problem. Again. But something had shifted in her tone. A crack in the way she said literally that sounded too defensive, too rehearsed. Like she had practiced the line and delivered it too early. I didn't push. I just nodded. Said nothing. And at 2:13 a.m., when she was asleep next to me, I opened her iPad, synced to the same messages as her phone. And what I saw wasn't sexts, wasn't photos. It was worse. It was comfort. Anton texting her, "Don't let him get in your head. You were glowing tonight. You always are." Nessa replying, "You get me. You actually get me. He's so predictable it makes me itch." And then a heart emoji. Not the red one. The orange one. The subtle one. The safe for work one that people don't question unless they know what it means. I turned off the iPad and stared at the ceiling for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just laid there, memorizing the sound of her breathing, wondering how long she'd been building a version of her life where I was no longer the person she came home to. I was just the excuse she used for not staying late. She rolled over at one point, threw her arm over my chest, and whispered, half asleep, "Anton," then corrected herself. "Sorry, I meant Calder." She didn't even wake up after saying it. The next morning, I didn't bring it up. I didn't mention the orange heart, the midnight whisper, or the name that slipped out like a confession with no priest in the room. I couldn't. I didn't have proof of anything physical, and I knew exactly how she'd react. Deflect, dismiss, or worse. Pity me like I was some weak animal gnawing at its own foot in a trap only I could see. So I said nothing. But everything about me changed. I started watching her in ways I never had to before, not because I didn't trust her, but because I always assumed I didn't need to. But now, every laugh was a clue. Every text she typed too quickly became a code I had to break. Every time she turned her phone face down on the table, it felt like someone slowly sliding a blade into my back. I wasn't living with her anymore. I was investigating her. One night, maybe 4 days after the rooftop party, I got bold. Or desperate. I told her I had a late work call, which was a lie, and I stayed parked outside her office building for over 2 hours. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. I think I just wanted to catch her walking out with him. Something I could point to. Something real. But when the doors opened around 8:40 p.m., she walked out alone. No Anton. No coworkers. Just her. She didn't see me. She got in her car, checked her phone, smiled, and drove off. I followed her, ashamed of myself, but too far gone to turn back. She didn't go home. She went to a place called Ash and Maple, a boutique wine bar on the edge of town that we used to go to once a year, always on our anniversary. She never went there alone. I only knew it still existed because the last time I suggested going, she said it felt too stuffy now. Said she'd outgrown it. But apparently, she hadn't outgrown it for everything. She parked, got out, and walked in with her shoulders relaxed, her dress just a little too intentional for a random Tuesday night. I waited. I kept telling myself, if Anton walks in, that's it. That's your moment. But 20 minutes went by, and no one joined her. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was her trying to reconnect with herself. Maybe she just needed space, and I was making a villain out of a person who just wanted 1 hour alone with a glass of wine and no husband watching her like a cop. But then, she took out her phone. I watched her smile. The slow, melting kind. The kind I hadn't seen directed at me since before her last promotion. And then, I'm not proud of this, I got out of the car, walked across the street, and looked in through the window. I didn't go inside. I just watched from a distance like a pathetic version of myself I didn't recognize. She was holding her phone with both hands, reading, then typing, then smiling again. She tilted her head, the way she always does when she's being playful. It wasn't a wine bar smile. It wasn't solitude. It was a someone's on the other end of this smile. She took a photo of her drink and the candlelit table, then typed for a full minute, thumbs dancing. When I got back into my car, my heart was thudding in that dull, lifeless rhythm you feel when you know you're being replaced. Not by someone better, but by someone new. Someone different. I drove home and sat in the driveway with the engine off, staring at the reflection of my own face in the windshield, wondering when I stopped being her person and started being the background character in her life. She came home an hour later. She smelled like vanilla and cold night air. She kissed me on the cheek like she was clocking in for work. I asked her how the day was. She said, boring, as she always does. And then she went upstairs to shower, humming. That night, I didn't check the iPad. I didn't snoop. I didn't follow her texts. I just stared at the ceiling and realized something I hadn't wanted to believe. She didn't love me anymore. But worse, she didn't hate me either. She felt nothing. And that scared me more than anything Anton could have ever done. I used to believe that when a relationship dies, it happens loudly, through fights, confessions, screaming matches, or betrayal caught in real time. But that's not how this happened. What's worse than betrayal is erosion. You don't feel it at first. You just realize one day that nothing you say lands anymore. You're speaking, but you're not in the room. It was a Saturday morning when I realized she had quietly started living somewhere else. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. In the span of 3 days, she had canceled 2 dinners, spent a night at her sister's for a wine night, and changed the password to our shared streaming account without telling me. Not maliciously, not even sneakily, just effortlessly, like I wasn't supposed to notice. Like I was the one living in a memory she'd already deleted. I asked her if she wanted to go to the lake that weekend. The lake where we got engaged, where we used to sit on the hood of my car, drink gas station coffee, and talk about what we'd name our imaginary future kids. I hadn't been there in years. Maybe I just wanted to feel close to something real again. She didn't even look up from her phone. That place gives me headaches. Too many mosquitoes, she said flatly, and kept scrolling. 5 minutes later, I heard her laugh, quietly, warmly, at something on her screen. I sat there, pretending to read the news, pretending I didn't hear her type orange heart again, pretending I hadn't memorized the rhythm of her new smile. I started keeping a log. I don't know why. Maybe because if I wrote it down, it would feel less like paranoia and more like evidence. Monday, home late, no explanation. Tuesday, laughed at her phone 3 times during dinner, none of it shared with me. Wednesday, gym bag in the car, but she didn't go to the gym. Thursday, she didn't touch me once. Not a kiss, not a hand on the back. Nothing. Friday, she wore perfume to pick up groceries. I know what you're thinking. Why not confront her? Why not tear the curtain down and ask her straight? Because you don't confront someone who's already left. You try to make yourself smaller, quieter. You try to be easy to love again, hoping they'll look back. But she didn't look back. She started locking her phone, even in the house. She'd turn the screen away when texting. And the worst part was, I wasn't even trying to catch her anymore. I just wanted her to talk to me, to see me, to let me in on whatever version of her life she was living that I'd somehow lost the password to. Then, something happened that snapped whatever was left of my denial. I went into our walk-in closet to grab my hoodie. It was one of those early spring mornings when the air still had a bite to it. Her side of the closet used to be cluttered, shoes poking out, scarves falling off hangers, her signature chaos. But not that morning. That morning, it was organized. Strangely so. 2 pairs of heels were missing. Her favorite coat, The one she wore when she wanted to feel powerful was gone. Half the scarves weren't there. A drawer that used to hold nothing but tangled jewelry was now nearly empty. She hadn't moved out. She was moving around me, packing herself up in chapters while I sat downstairs making coffee for a marriage that was already being boxed and labeled. I closed the closet door slowly, like I didn't want to wake up the version of myself who still believed this could be fixed. That night, I watched her sleep, not out of affection, but because I was trying to remember who she used to be, and if I was ever actually the one she wanted, or just the one who showed up at the right time. I started to realize something deeply unsettling. Anton wasn't the cause of the distance. He was the reward for it. It happened because of laundry, not phone snooping, not some dramatic discovery. Laundry. She always hated folding clothes. Said it made her feel like she was wasting her life. So I did it. Always have. I didn't mind. It was my quiet task, the one thing I could still do for her without being met with eye rolls or impatient sighs. But last Sunday, while folding a load she left in the dryer, I came across a t-shirt I didn't recognize. Not just any t-shirt. It was gray, fitted, and worn in a way that no new shirt ever looks. It smelled faintly of cedar and musk. Not her scent, not mine either. It was also a men's size large. I held it up in front of me like I was trying to read something invisible written in the fabric. That shirt had seen more of her skin than I had in weeks. Maybe months. I didn't say anything right away. I folded it. I placed it at the bottom of the clean laundry stack without a word, and I sat with the feeling, that nauseating hum in your chest when you know what something means, but you're waiting for your brain to catch up and give it permission to destroy you. Later that night, when she came home from whatever vague errand she was out on, getting a new charger, I was sitting in the kitchen pretending to scroll through something on my laptop. She kissed me on the cheek. I watched her open a bottle of wine. She didn't ask me if I wanted any. She hasn't in weeks. Nessa, I said quietly, not looking up. She stopped mid-pour. Yeah. Whose shirt is that? There was a pause. Not a long one, but just long enough for her to decide who she was going to be in that moment. What shirt? She asked. Too fast. The one from the laundry. Gray. Men's. Large. Not mine. She didn't answer right away. Just sipped her wine like it might give her a line. Oh, that must be. Actually, I don't know. Maybe my sister's boyfriend left it? Her sister's boyfriend lives in Arizona. We live in Oregon. He hasn't been to our house in almost a year. She didn't even try to sell it properly. That's what broke me more than the lie itself, the laziness of it. The way she didn't even think I was worth a convincing performance anymore. I stared at her. Not angry. Just hollow. You wore it. She looked at me like I was the one making things complicated. What are you talking about? It was inside out. You wore it. You washed it. You folded it with your other stuff. She set the wine glass down a little too hard. Jesus, Calder, it's a t-shirt. Are we really doing this? You're not even pretending anymore, I said. My voice sounded far away to me. Pretending what? She snapped. That I'm still madly obsessed with a man who doesn't ask me anything real for 2 years straight? That I'm supposed to keep orbiting your version of this marriage while you act like folding clothes is intimacy? She said it like it was preloaded. Like she'd been carrying that monologue around waiting for a reason to release it. And she just did. Right there in the kitchen where we once danced barefoot at midnight to some dumb indie playlist, she told me, not in those exact words, but close enough, that I was no longer someone she loved. I was someone she tolerated. Out of habit. Out of history. Out of whatever version of guilt hadn't been eroded yet. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded. So it's Anton. She didn't answer. That silence said more than anything she could have come up with. She just walked past me, wine in hand, and muttered, I'm tired. She went upstairs. I sat in the kitchen until the sun came up. Didn't move. Just stared at the fridge and wondered how a person could lie so softly you didn't even feel the cut until you were already bleeding. And I realized something that morning, as the light crept in and made the silence even louder. She didn't fall for Anton because he was exciting or new. She fell for him because she didn't have to be my wife when she was with him. She could be someone else entirely. Someone I never got to meet. After that night, something shifted in me. Not like a door slamming shut. More like a lock clicking from the inside. A slow, deliberate kind of silence I didn't recognize as my own. I stopped trying to talk to her. I stopped offering coffee in the morning, stopped asking when she'd be home, stopped pretending I didn't notice her makeup was more careful, her phone brighter, and closer to her face during dinner. We started coexisting the way ghosts do, in the same house, never touching the same floorboards at the same time. But I couldn't let it go. I started walking. At night, sometimes at dawn, miles around the neighborhood, past houses where lights flickered behind curtains, past barking dogs and the soft hum of sprinklers coming alive. I didn't even realize I was doing it for hours at a time. One night, I ended up in a grocery store parking lot 2 neighborhoods over, sitting on a curb with a warm bottle of root beer in my hand, wondering when exactly I'd stopped being a person with instincts and started being a man with suspicions and no plan. And that's when I did something that changed everything. I followed her. It wasn't planned. I wasn't lurking in the shadows with binoculars or anything like that. I just noticed her keys jingling at the door earlier than usual one evening. She said she had a meeting about team restructuring. No specifics, no times, just vague nouns and the same exhausted face she used when she was finished with me for the day. I waited 3 minutes, slipped on my shoes, and followed her. It felt ridiculous at first, like some insecure teenager stalking a crush, but that ridiculousness wore off the second I saw her take a turn she never took when driving to the office. She didn't head toward the tech park. She drove the opposite way, toward the hills. Residential. Wealthier. I knew immediately. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about Anton either, at least, not directly. This was about the life she was rehearsing somewhere else, one that didn't include me in the script. She pulled into a driveway. Nice house. Glass panels. Modern architecture. One of those homes that looks like it came pre-installed with regrets you can't afford. She got out, didn't knock, didn't hesitate, just opened the front door with a code, like she'd done it 100 times. I parked around the corner and sat there for 27 minutes, counting. At minute 13, a silhouette passed the upstairs window. 2 people, one of them hers. At minute 22, a light turned off. Then another. At minute 26, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly I felt something pop in my wrist. I didn't do anything. I didn't storm the house or bang on the door or shout her name like a man unraveling on live television. I just drove away, like a coward, or maybe like a man still unsure if he wanted the truth confirmed out loud. But I didn't go home. I parked by the river, the same place I used to take her on weekends when we were too broke to travel, when holding hands meant something. I sat there in the dark and thought about all the moments I had mistaken distance for stress, quiet for exhaustion, and how love, real love, doesn't disappear all at once. It dissolves. I don't know how long I sat there, but at some point my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. It read, "You deserve to know. She's been here before." Just that. No name, no punctuation, no photos. Just a truth sent into the dark by someone who had seen what I was only starting to understand. My heart nearly stopped. I read it 5 times. Checked the number. No profile. No clue. But someone was watching her. Watching us. And they weren't on her side. I didn't reply to the message. I just stared at it, the screen glowing in the dark like some silent confession. I must have read it 50 times, hoping that if I stared long enough, the truth would come with instructions. But it didn't. It just sat there, cold and final, like a flatline. When Nessa came home later that night, I was awake, pretending not to be. I listened to her undress in the dark, tiptoe into bed, slip under the covers like someone afraid of waking a sleeping conscience. Her breathing evened out within minutes. Mine never did. The next morning, I made pancakes. Not because I wanted to pretend, but because I wanted the last thing I did for her to be something soft, something real. We ate mostly in silence. She looked tired. I probably did too. But for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of the quiet. I just let it be what it was. After breakfast, I said it. "I know." She looked up, a flicker of confusion passing across her face. "Know what?" I didn't answer right away, just nodded slowly. About the house, the shirt, Anton, the long drives with short explanations. All of it. Her fork stopped moving, and then she did something I didn't expect. She didn't cry. She didn't deny it. She didn't scream. She just looked at me with this exhausted softness I hadn't seen since the first year we were married, back when we still tried to understand each other instead of just surviving side by side. And she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen this way." I nodded again. "I know." And that was it. We didn't throw plates. We didn't hurl accusations. We didn't dig through each other's sins looking for leverage. We just stopped. The performance ended. The characters we had been playing folded quietly into the people we really were. Two tired souls who ran out of future, but were still decent enough not to burn what was left of the past. She moved out 2 weeks later. No lawyers. No war. Just boxes, polite logistics, and the smell of closure in the hallway. For a while, I felt like a dead man walking through the ruins of his own history. But grief isn't a straight line. It's more like tide water. You learn to stand again, bit by bit. I started running in the mornings. Got a dog. Took a solo road trip with no destination. Somewhere between mile 300 and a broken-down gas station in Montana, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at Anton. Not even at myself. Because the truth is, I think I knew long before I ever admitted it. I just didn't want to let go of the story I'd written for us. I was clinging to a version of love that hadn't been true for either of us in years. And letting go? It didn't break me. It saved me. Last week, I got a postcard from Portland. No name. Just a sketch of the skyline and a single sentence in handwriting I knew by heart. Thank you for being kind, even when I wasn't. I smiled. I didn't cry. I put it in a drawer with the rest of the memories I no longer needed to carry. And then I took my dog for a walk, under a sky that finally felt like it belonged to me again.